Hey, my Onshape designers. This is a very introduction level video. It's going to be a wheel drawing, like on a CO2 dragster, Pinewood Derby car, like wheel design, real quick. And it's the perfect opportunity to get into the fundamentals of this program. If you look at these tools, you'll see a lot of gray in them and a lot of what looks like three-dimensional buttons. And these are your modifications for three-dimensional objects. After you already have something that's a solid object looking thing in your screen, you can use these tools to shape it. And then if you look at these two tools, when you're going to sketch mode, which you can hit Shift and S, there's a lot of different ways to do any given thing here. So training is an interesting scenario. You're getting instruction, and then you have to adopt what works for you best, and that's just the standard for software like this. But so some people love the shortcut keys on the keyboard, can memorize stuff like that. Like Shift S is going to get you this. If you want to do a line, you can just hit the L button. Like I'm going to hit Sketch here. It says sketch plane in this field here. This is going to fill in with whatever I choose. And you can see over here it says select the sketch plane. And that's what these are. You have your Cartesian coordinate axis, X, Y, and Z built into this, but you have a top plane to draw on or sketch on front and right to begin with. And then you can create as many of these as you need. I can multiply these out in different ways. People ask that question generally right out of the gate. Anyway, for a wheel, I'm going to start off by selecting the front plane as my sketch. So I then left click there. You'll see it says sketch 1 light up. This is just the way this program is developed. This menu doesn't have to stay right there. I'm used to leaving it here-ish. Really, it's in the way if it's over here because these menus have visibility controls. You can turn these visibilities on and off for the planes too. But anyway, what I need to stay focused on here for everyone is that this is the process, and you see the menu up here changes. You'll start to note that these are now two-dimensional drawing basic tools like lines and rectangles and circles and stuff, nothing 3D. These are what I was talking about as far as the gray three-dimensional looking tools, and this is called extrude. This is how you would take like a rectangle and make it into a cube, and this would be how you could take a profile of something like what we're about to do with a wheel design and make it circular. So a wheel is actually going to start off with a series of rectangles, and then you're going to note as I go here, these menus are drop downs for types of tool. So you have a rectangle, and then you have different ways of creating it, from the corners where you pull it from left to right or right to left. Center point, which is super helpful, so you can start in the middle and pull outward, which keeps everything symmetrical. And then you have a way that you can take and align a rectangle to an angle, which is a little bit more complex, but you'll see that at some point. Now, in this case, I'm starting with a corner point rectangle, and it's difficult to see anything if I'm looking on an angle here. So the way to easily get straight viewed onto where I'm drawing in this case is by clicking the cube in the corner. So now I'm looking directly at the front plane. And watch this. I'll do it quickly now with a wheel. It's just going to be 3 rectangles, and I'm going to use, you got to pay attention to the color changes if you want this to be easy for you as you go. If you don't pay attention to that, mistakes will be guaranteed, and then you're going to be frustrated at some point later down the road. And right now I'm just going to sculpt, meaning I'm not paying any attention to the measurements that I'm seeing. I'm just going to make it look the size and shape that I want it to be. So I'm drawing a rectangle like this, moving away. There's no attachments. When you draw lines, you're going to have an extension line that I have to talk about, but this right now is good. That box, if you're over the midpoint of any line and you see that, it's going to be, and you even have a little black line indicator there to the bottom right of my crosshairs here that shows you that's detecting the midpoint of a line. I do not want to use that because it'll snap to that. It'll force me to lock to that point in space, which I don't want to do right now. I'm just going to then, let's see, I'll zoom out. Anyway, that was just a second rectangle. I needed to mention that because I couldn't click on that midpoint, which if I hover over it again, you'll see it. I don't want to lock a line onto it because it's going to anchor it there. It's going to then not allow me to move it. And I'll talk about moving things in a second. Notice that I have this plus symbol, or crosshairs I usually call them. That means this tool up here, or any tool, is going to be on when you see that plus symbol. Now here you can see there's thinking going on in the software. I'm going to draw the last rectangle here for the last part of my wheel. This rectangle is going to go out here like this. If you're going to attempt to draw something that looks like a wheel, it's going to be a little less than double the size of the bottom rectangle if you want to look at the scaling of it. But you see that the program, if I'm drawing things, it's going to give me indicators to help me align objects. So if I hover over this and I want to draw something that's aligned to it in space, it shows me where it is, so I know I'm aligned to it, kind of a thing. So I have these 3 rectangles now. Just, again, this is going to be a wheel design, and I said I was going to do this quickly. If I click now Revolve, the program, you see I clicked one of the 3-dimensional tools, and now I'm seeing all these 3D modification tools, and it already picks what's called the faces of the sketch. So this is the face of the entire sketch that I just made. I was just in sketch 1, so it selected that. Revolve axis. Is this going to allow me to do this without a drawn axis? I haven't done a revolve like this in a little bit. I got to go back in here. It's good for training anyhow. That's the point of this program. And I said the difference between a tool on and tool, you'll see a plus symbol for the tool on. If I don't have any tool on, I have this white arrow. You see these could either toggle on, or you hit the escape key on the keyboard to turn it off. I could also right click and hit escape rectangle, which I'm forced to do when I'm using the software that I'm recording with right now. So whenever you see this menu come up and I click escape rectangle, you should just hit escape on the keyboard. But that gives you a white arrow and the ability to modify or drag around anything that you see. Like, I think the height of this is a little bit too much anyway, so I'm going to reduce that down a little bit. I'll leave this roughly this size, that's fine. But I can resize or grab anything with a white arrow. If I try and do this with the plus symbol, what's going to happen? You'll get frustrated because you forget that that means a tool is on. And if you have a rectangle tool on, you're going to go to grab something and you're going to start drawing another rectangle, and then you just start stacking frustration up. So knowing that right clicking and then escape for me is going to mean hit the escape on the keyboard for you to turn the tool off so you can grab white arrow. Anyway, and then turning sketches on and off. I needed to modify sketch 1. All I needed to do is click on it if I want to finish what I'm still not done with what I needed to do here, but you're just seeing that I can turn on and off my sketches, which is absolutely necessary to know how to do, because if you want to go and change something, you're going to have to know how to turn it back on, see these blue lines, and then work with it. All I need here is to do the type of 3D command that I was looking to do. Sometimes see, this is what I'm talking about. If I'm drawing a line, I want to hit the escape key, but the program that I'm using to record right now with is not allowing me to. So I have to right click and hit escape line, and that finishes that step. But the type of revolve command that I'm looking to use, you can use a line on the drawing itself or on the sketch itself and spin around that. I want to create a hole with this gap in here, and you'll see that as I pick this axis now, it's going to create a defined wheel. But I forgot to add that when I was doing this, because it's necessary in a case like this, where I choose now the revolve axis. Click on that. Click on the revolve axis. You can see it's now calling this the edge of sketch 1. It puts it in there. So it selected the face to revolve, and this is the axis I'm revolving around. And this is the end result. And again, it's just looking at things in space and getting the hang of, okay, well, I don't like it that way. I'm going to go in here, modify it now, and make it how I want it to look, just by sculpting at this point. Click the green check mark. It'll update it again if I want to go further with it. Here, watch this. There's a round over type tool called fillet, not fillet. If I click that, and I click the corner here, based on the size, I'm good with that already. And let me hit this other top corner here. So it already starts to sculpt and round it out and make it look more like a wheel. If we want to color up real quick, just to make this a little bit more interesting right out of the gate, I'm going to right click on, this is the part that I'm creating. It's called part 1. I can rename it here also and call it wheel. Just so you know what you're looking at in space here. And right click again, edit appearance, and give it a color. I'm going to give it something a little bit bold here so people can see what's going on. All right, green check mark again. This is neat. If you want to look up colors online, people that are picking this up, this palette allows you to put in either what's called a hex code or RGB color codes to match exact colors. So you can look up a company's colors, you can look up like military colors, you can find hex codes and RGB codes online and punch the numbers in here manually. You can type them in and match exact colors, and you could also change and make things transparent, able to be seen through, so you can work a little bit easier in space here in this menu. So this is a neat menu. It does a lot. Anyway, finishing that, and I'm going to draw some detail here for you in the inside of the wheel. I'm right clicking here to orbit and look at this thing. I'm going to now use one of the surfaces of this wheel as a drawing surface rather than using these planes. I can pick a surface. I get at sketch and then select the sketch plane. My new sketch plane is going to be now the side of this wheel. The way I drew this was in significance because it's centered around the origin point here. So this is actually called the origin point, and that matters. That's what everything is now rotating around in space. By looking straight at sketch 2 now, you can see I'm here in sketch 2. I've got my sketch 2 plane. Put this thing out of the way. This is indicating that I'm now on the surface of that wheel. Just click here to look at it. I can draw a circle or whatever kind of shape I want to draw. And then I'm going to, and just note that that circle again has a menu, and there's various forms of circles. And center point circle, this is telling you that you're clicking in the middle and pulling outward rather than clicking on an outside of anything and pulling inward. So anyway, just knowing how it's going to work when you pull out and drag out a circle. It starts from middle outward, and I'm only going to draw one and use a pattern to multiply this out and make more. So up here, just about dead center, there's a pattern menu. If you drop that down, you have multiple options here. So circular pattern now is what I'm going to pick. I'm going to click the circle that I'm going to pattern out. You can see there's a fancy menu here. It shows what's about to happen. If I click where it says 3x, just double click that, and then I can tell however many of these I want. Let's go with, well, they overlap. What's going on is I'm running into some other problems. I can't hit escape or enter. I'm used to hitting enter. Again, with my recording software that I'm using right now, it's a complication, but it's got a great green mouse highlight on where it wants you to click on that little icon that pops up there, so you can normally flow with this program with little instruction just by the visuals that come up. Anyway, this patterned set of circles here, 12 worked. You can go back into that and change it by double clicking on that. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn this just to show you, like the menus all have different deep levels of control. The first thing that happens is it's trying to add material and pull it out to you when you click this extrude button. You then click remove. If you want it to go and cut out, it'll flip it for you. You can change the direction of any of what you see going on there if necessary with these arrows. You can also drag and pull what you see going on in both directions, but you got to just note, as far as what's most important here, is that as soon as you click remove, flips the direction, starts to cut out the material that you're looking to, and then I've got something like this. Prettying this up a little bit to, you can get rid of the visibility on these planes and just be looking at what you've got in your design. Like just to review, going back in here, if this hole was a little bit too big, if I wanted to put an exact dimension on it, I'll show you that too. I could just put a dimension on it. I could hit the D on the keyboard or click this button, and I can put a measurement, click on one section, click on another section of drawing here, and do this to show you. This would look like silly. But if I needed to, I wanted to know what measurement this was. If I needed this to be an exact 8mm hole, I would dimension the radius in this case of the hole opening to half of whatever I'm looking for. So I'm going to make this 8 and enter, and that'll make the diameter of the hole 16. There's a lot of geometry built into this program, but that's how you could actually get an exact fit. So for the math minds and specifics about, like, if I were to 3D print this and I had a let's say an 8mm steel rod that I was going to push in there, like on a dragster or a CO2 type dragster, I would make this fit coming out of a 3D print robotic type machine. My tolerance or the size to make the steel work. You can't make something exactly the same dimension. If I had a 16mm steel rod, you can't print something exactly 16mm and expect it to fit. You need a little bit of clearance, or what's called tolerance. When 0.3mm is what I go for in terms of a good tight friction fit type tolerance. So I would end up making this like 8.15 would be my actual measurement, and at 16, so it'd be 16.3 millimeters across now mathematically, and I'd be able to take a 16mm steel rod and fit it, and I'd be able to 3D print something like this without much trouble at all. But just getting a little bit into the technical side of what's possible and simple type steps, this is a lot of fun to deal with. And you can also modify more three-dimensionally. Okay, let's get into another intelligent step here of workflow. If you design something like this and you want to now look at what it would be if you change something, you can make copies of what you're dealing with by right-clicking on the Part Studio here and duplicating it. You can just make a replica file, and I'll call it Revolve Copy 1, and then just right-click, rename this, and call it. You really have to get in the hang of renaming things. Okay, this is Revolve by training. I put that there instruction-wise, but I'm going to rename this and call this now, so you can so like you can now, with a non-destructive workflow, this is called, I can now chop this thing up and I'm not having any impact on my progress. It's creating your own little checkpoint, like in a video game, right? You can now look at modifying this in 3D and whatever other way you might want to play with in the program. Sometimes if you have an indicator like this where it goes red and it's screaming at you, it's telling you like something's wrong. This measurement here, you can see I'm selecting edges, and then the edge that I just selected, the second one, turned red. It just means that the measurement of the round is too big for the space that I'm dealing with. So if I change this to a 3, let's say, it's going to modify this to 3mm, and if I click 3mm there, it's going to work now because there's enough space to make 3mm to the left and 3mm up to create that shape. It was interfering at 5mm. It was hitting the other parts of the project here, so that wasn't going to be a thing. You can look at what's happening when you select using these types of tools. It's going to give you a list of what you're selecting, so you can see what's going on. You can see I just click out here, and I got another edge selected. And you'll see where I'm zooming and controlling, like by right-clicking and pulling. Well, my zoom happens where my mouse arrow is, so I can pull this thing around in space and get to where I need to by how I zoom. Sometimes I'm zooming into a space like over here by zooming out to the right of it to pull it into the center of the screen for me, and that's just where muscle memory practice. It is just practice-based, experience-based controls that I know because of time. Anyway, modifying this, I'm going to right-click here again and change the appearance, edit the appearance of this, just to also give it a different color for everybody to see what I'm working on. Different part file. So now I have this and this. And let's say I don't like the whole pattern in the center and I want to change that. I can go now into Sketch 2. I can highlight around here and find what I need to find. And I'm going to get rid of all of this by right-clicking on this now and deleting it at the bottom. And then this was the 3D control that happened after I created that. So it just went right. I'm going to right-click and I'm going to delete that too. And now I'm just going to, I'll just draw it on this side. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it on the original side because I'm not going to explain that yet. But sketch, I'm going to draw again here just to show this. I'm going to click on the right side of this here. And now I'm going to use arcs. And this is, you can do this in various ways. I'm going to just use a conic arc specifically because I'm going to draw like a cut. And by pulling this, I can flex the direction of this curve however I want. So I'm just pulling this in a random way and hitting enter when I see that line come up. All I'm saying is I'm going to make kind of like just a flared out cut like this. It almost looks like an eye. And hit enter. And pattern that now. I'm clicking the pattern tool. I want to pattern these two lines that's going to connect and create what I want to do. And I have to zoom out to find the indicator here now for however many I need of these, but I'm going to change that to a 6. Yeah, left click on that. I just finished that before I meant to. By double clicking it, I turn it back on. If I hit extrude here, it should select those shapes. Again, if I hit remove, you'll see that gives me like a completely different profile. The idea being you can see that can be changed, and the reason that I did this duplicate is because I can go in there, I can modify sketches. You could just go in there and delete what you see or modify what you see, but I wanted you to see it from start to finish with removing a sketch and removing an extrude. That's a lot of the fundamentals, and this takes a lot of time out of the gate to get cozy with. But it's a repeated process of creating sketches and then turning that into 3Ds. A little bit of other interesting stuff you could do. Let's say this is the outside of the wheel. What is it? I don't know. I'm just playing around with different options here. This is a little too big for my design. I'll change this to 2 millimeters. And you can see there's a lot of different stuff that you could do. Except it's hollering at me here. It's like running into problems. See. The problem in this case, again, the measurement is too big and it's interfering with something else. I don't know why it doesn't like some of these. It's just an interference issue. Yeah, this is something that I run into a lot. There's just only so much you can know about programs and what to expect. I'm sure if I change this to like a 0.5 or something, I can click surfaces too, and it'll modify every part of it, which actually happened to work. You can see I got now very small cut, but into every part of this, including in here on the inside of the hub. I'll do a slightly bigger one here just so you can see on the outside. It's called chamfer. Change that to 5. It's going to work. 3. There we go. and that's the basics. And then again, with some of these sub menus, there's multiple options for this. So I could actually go 2 distances and choose like 1 and 3 for my distances. And I actually wanted to go the opposite of that. 1 and actually I'm going to change this to 4. So you can see it. In this case, it went down 1 millimeter in this direction, and it went over 4 millimeters in the next direction. So using 2 distances, you can create more than just a 45-degree angle. You can create any angle that way. So that's really helpful depending on how accurate you want to get with design. So you can play, and the point here is to be able to, if you want to really modify anything, you can duplicate out these, call this, if you need to, right click on it, rename it wheel 3. And you can put in, you can look up wheel designs online and design something more technical if you really want to, but that's a fun intro type piece of work here. Teaches you a lot of different tools, and if you follow through with that, that teaches you how to make things like chess pieces or baseball bats or anything that's got any sort of cylindrical design into it. There's a lot out there. Rings, you can print or design rings this way. It's a lot of fun. We'll do that next, actually, in a video here, so you can see another basic design Revolve type project. But good luck. Email me if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Take care, guys.